What's going on YouTube? Mike here with Iron Knives, and in this video we're going to be sharpening the Benchmade 940 in carbon fiber and S90V. We're going to get a couple things out of the way right in the beginning. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments or email me at iheartknives@yahoo.com, and let's get right into it. This knife comes courtesy from Mike. Mike Likes Knives on Instagram. And we start with killing the edge on a silicon carbide stone. And then we go ahead and mark the edge with a Sharpie. We'll hit both sides with the Sharpie. That'll give me a visual aid. And I'll know exactly where the edge is hitting on the stone. I'll be using the Veneve bonded diamond stone. It's a 240 and 400 grit. I got it from gritomatic.com. And a disclaimer, I paid for the stone with my money. Everything you see on the channel, unless it's lent to me from a subscriber or a friend, I pay for everything. So I had a smart ass say that, I probably got the stone sent to me and that I'm just, giving a mindless review. But I paid for the stone, so whatever. So start with one side, and I'll sharpen until I get a burr, and make sure that I hit the edge where I want it to be hit, and get the apex where I need it. This is a 50 to 40 micron side. It leaves a pretty fine finish for how coarse it is. If we're talking Japanese ceramic, stone, it's like equivalent to a 400, but it moves pretty quickly with S90V. The other side of the stone takes a little longer. It's a little bit slower, but it's also a higher grit. And the S90V was, responded well to it. So, high carbide steels respond nicely to the bonded diamonds. I like it a little better than, your typical like DMT or Atoma plates. Just keep sharpening until I feel for the burr, and then refine, and just like the typical sharpening. Most of you know how to sharpen. I'm just talking it through. If you guys want like a detailed how-to, I could do that. Just leave them in the comments. Let me know what you guys want to see for that. But it took me a little bit longer to establish the initial shape, just because the Benchmade 940 has a weird shape to it. It's not, like a standard clip point. It's like a fairly easy shape to sharpen, but it is straight for the most part. But it did have a little bit of a recurve at the back. I think it's just the initial grind of how it was. It wasn't the way Mike sharpened it. I think it was the initial from Benchmade. So then we go to the other side, and that's the 400 grit, and this is a 20 to 14 micron, which is equivalent to like a 1000 grit in Japanese waterstones. It took me a little bit longer to sharpen on this side because the surface of the stone was a little bit slacking. There was a decent amount of steel residue in it, and I realized it about halfway into the sharpening on this side, so I ended up needing to lap it, and you guys will see that in a little bit, that I ended up lapping it and roughing up the surface. I didn't do a full lap, I just did like a surface conditioning with the Edge Pro 1x6 silicon carbide 400 grit, and it helps break up those steel particles, and the resin and the diamonds kind of poke through, so you get more even cutting that way, and then you're not putting as much pressure, which also helps with your apex formation and getting a nice edge on your knife. If you're pushing too hard, then you run the risk of folding over your apex or your burr, and then you end up making more work for yourself. So I like to resurface these more often than not often enough, because then in turn I'll end up I'll put pressure that doesn't need to be put, and then you can affect the apex because of that. So that's important to remember with bonded diamond stones. So just keep going with really light pressure, refining the burr, and weaken it, getting it as small as I can before I move to the strops. And then after this, I go to 3 micron Richmond diamond emulsion, and this comes from chefknives2go.com, and this is on horsehide. This is just a really inexpensive, like $10 diamond emulsion. My 2 micron, I use CBN, Ken Schwartz CBN emulsion. That's a little bit more expensive, but I felt that for S90V going up to 2 micron was plenty, but 3 micron, honestly, I could have just stopped at 3. It wasn't necessary to go to 2, but I like the polish that it leaves. Mike had a really nice polish on the S90V when he gave it to me, so I wanted to go, polished enough that, that it looked good. Everybody likes a nice polish on a bevel, so I figured I'd go up to 2. That's like a good compromise, especially with, these, like a 10V class steel. It's I think better to stay a little bit more coarse. So 2 microns is just a good compromise between like that fine edge, but also keeping it coarse enough that you get the the benefit of S90V, which for edge retention, staying a little bit more coarse is better. But the 940 is a nice little knife. It's not a real slicey knife, just because the edge thickness is a little bit thicker behind the edge, but it's still just a really good utilitarian knife, and I'll have a review for that for you guys as well. So we go to 2 micron CBN emulsion. Again, it's Ken Schwartz CBN emulsion, and it's on horsehide as well. And we use Sharpie again just for visual aid. And one thing about CBN emulsion that I notice than diamond emulsion is it feels a little bit stickier when you put the edge on, and Sharpie also aids in the tactile feel that you get with stropping. For whatever reason, it grabs the Sharpie in a way that it feels a little bit more sticky than just the bare steel, so like exactly where you are on that bevel. I just keep stropping until the Sharpie's gone, and once I do a 3-finger Marie Carter 3-finger test. I don't show you guys all this, but I do that to figure it out, and then I also use the paper towel to get my to see where my edge is at. Paper towel I find is a good cut test. I had a snag or two in the beginning, but I figured that you could see in these last 2 cuts that they were much easier in the longer cuts. I think I was tilting the knife a little bit that was holding it back. And then go ahead and shave my hand, and you could see it just wiped the hairs right off. So it's pretty screaming sharp. Mike should have a good time with it. That's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Later.